Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really cutting straight to the core of an organizational problem, one that quietly, drains resources and talent. Our mission here is to understand and maybe start to dismantle those invisible barriers that stop your organization from evolving.
Yeah, we're diving deep into this powerful idea from new research by Phoenix Performance Partners. They call it the innovation tax. It's essentially the hidden cost, both financial and human, that comes from just clinging too tightly to what worked yesterday. And our focus is really on how that one phrase, "we've always done it this way," acts as this, like a primary anchor holding things back.
It's amazing how long this insight has been around, isn't it? I mean, think about Grace Hopper, the computer science pioneer. She warned decades ago, her famous quote, "The most dangerous phrase in the language is we've always done it this way." So that's what we're unpacking today. The specific language patterns that, well, kill creativity and keep organizations stuck in their comfort zones. Let's maybe start with the hard numbers, because defaulting to the old ways, it isn't neutral, right? It's an active choice. It's choosing comfort over potential growth. What's the actual tangible cost for organizations paying this innovation tax?
Oh, the cost is pretty staggering, and it's often completely missed. It's not on any balance sheet. Conventional thinking is like this silent killer of opportunity. When you look at the financials, the evidence is just overwhelming. McKinsey research, it shows companies in the top quartile for innovation. They outperform their peers by, wait for it, a massive 200% in growth.
200%. Wow. That's not just a small edge. That's market leadership defined right there. So what does being on the wrong side of that 200% mean for the organization stuck paying the tax?
Well, it translates directly into serious market vulnerability. It's not just about growth either. Those same top quartile companies, they also achieve 20% higher profit margins. So if you're stuck in those conventional practices, you're not just missing out on growth potential, you're actively losing ground. Every single day, you end up creating these competitive gaps that just get exponentially harder to close later on because the leaders, well, they're moving at double your speed.
And it's not just the lost revenue, is it? There's this other cost, the human cost, that slow drain of engagement, of talent. If an organization just keeps batting down ideas with, "we've always done it this way," how quickly does that apathy start to set in with the team?
It happens really fast.
Yeah.
Faster than you might think. When team members consistently bring thoughtful, innovative ideas forward, and they're met with that fixed mindset, they don't usually fight back for long. They comply. And that compliance, it shifts into resignation, quiet resignation. They just gradually stop offering ideas. You end up with a workforce focused purely on execution, on just following the rules, not on critical thinking or proactive problem solving. You lose your most valuable asset, really, the collective creativity of your people.
What's so fascinating, though, is why this happens. Why is this pattern so stubborn? You have highly intelligent people, people who logically know change is needed, but they still default back to the familiar. Why?
Because fundamentally, conventional thinking operates below the level of conscious awareness. It's an unconscious default. It's kind of baked into our human operating system. Our brains are wired for efficiency, right?
Yeah.
So they take familiar thinking, the stuff that worked before, and relegate it to the unconscious mind, makes it automatic, habitual. And that keeps us comfortable, saves cognitive energy. It feels easier.
But the problem is the environment isn't stable. It demands constant change. So if our natural tendency is to just coast on yesterday's success, well, that's a recipe for disaster when the pace of change keeps accelerating like this.
Precisely. And a critical insight that comes through in the sources is this. Darwin's model of slow generational evolution, adapting over long periods, that model is just woefully insufficient for organizations today. We can't afford to wait for a new generation of leaders to come in and fix the system. What we need now is something called intergenerational development.
Intergenerational development, that's a powerful term. Can you break that down a bit? What does that look like in practice for the listener?
It's the capacity, basically, to fundamentally retool and reinvent ourselves and our systems multiple times within a single working lifetime, within our own careers. We can't just rely on new hires to bring in all the innovation. We need the people already there, the existing workforce, to continuously challenge and upgrade their own mental models, their own ways of thinking. If you're not purposely building systems for that constant retooling, you're paying that innovation tax because your people are stuck. They're using old tools, old thought patterns to tackle completely new problems.
And this is where language becomes so critical, isn't it? It's the active agent. It can drive change or it can enforce stagnation. The words we use, they don't just reflect our thinking, they actively shape the possibilities we even see for our teams. So we need to start listening, really listening, for these 6 specific language patterns that act as these immediate roadblocks to growth.
Yeah, think of them as the organization's defense mechanisms. They're designed, unconsciously perhaps, to protect the status quo. These phrases prematurely shut down the necessary exploration, the conversations you need to have. They reinforce the comfort zone. They are, in effect, active choices to stop thinking critically about something new.
Okay, let's unpack the first couple. The classic one we've already mentioned, we've always done it this way,
Mm.
and it's very close cousin. That won't work here.
Right.
We've always done it this way.
Yeah.
It feels safe, doesn't it? It implies this proven track record, suggests any new approach is just, unnecessary risk. It basically signals to the team that tradition is valued more than potential future gains. And that won't work here. Well, that one's maybe even more insidious because it often comes with zero real critical assessment behind it.
Yeah, it's totally a thought-terminating phrase. Kills the idea before it even gets off the ground, and usually is based on some assumption about constraints, maybe constraints that don't even exist anymore or aren't as rigid as people think. Exactly. It uses the specific context, the here, as an excuse to avoid the effort of exploring it. Now, consider the third and fourth phrases. Let's be realistic, and we tried something similar before.
Ah, let's be realistic. That sounds so pragmatic, so responsible on the surface. But when you hear it in the context of a new idea, it often just masks a deep-seated fear of change, doesn't it? It's kind of code for, let's stay within our comfortable, predictable zone.
hmm And when you pair that with, we tried something similar before, it's like a double whammy. It treats past failures as these permanent roadblocks. But what it completely misses is how much the context might have changed. Maybe the tech wasn't ready 3 years ago, or the market timing was off, or maybe, just maybe, the execution wasn't great last time. Dismissing an idea based purely on a historical trial means you ignore all the potential learning from that previous attempt. You learn nothing.
Right, it slams the door shut on iteration entirely. Okay, so phrases 5 and 6. Number 5, that's not how we do things.
Today.
And number 6, let me tell you why that won't work.
That's not how we do things. This one enforces the unwritten cultural rules, the invisible way things are done around here. This really limits innovation to very narrow, pre-approved paths. Innovation is inherently messy, disruptive sometimes. This phrase is used to kind of restore order, keep everyone marching in the same, often complacent direction.
And that last one, let me tell you why that won't work, it just sets up an immediate negative filter, doesn't it? If every new idea, especially a fragile early stage one, is met by someone listing all the obstacles first, well, very few ideas can survive that kind of initial barrage, particularly those messy, half-formed concepts that often hold the seeds of a real breakthrough.
Absolutely. And if you connect these 6 patterns together, what they do at an organizational level is create what Carol Dweck calls a fixed mindset. It manifests as things like, oh, we don't have the right people for that, or that needs resources we just don't possess. Capabilities are seen as static, like fixed assets, rather than things you can develop, learn, expand. And this fixed mindset just keeps you perpetually trapped by past limitations.
Okay, so that's the problem laid bare. But the good news here, as the research suggests, is that this conventionality, it's a habit. It's learned. It's not some hardwired biological trait we can't change. The shift, then, from just complying, from paying that tax towards purpose-driven innovation, it starts by recognizing that fundamental choice we all make. Are we committed, really, to the comfort of the past, or are we committed to the purpose driving our future goals?
That's the core tension. And transformational leaders, they actively drive this shift. One key task is what the research calls making the unconscious conscious. They have to learn to spot and name that conventional thinking gently but firmly when it pops up. They challenge its assumptions. So instead of just letting "that won't work here" hang in the air, they might ask, okay, interesting perspective. What's changed since the last time we looked at something like this? Or what would need to be true for this to work here?
And they also have to be really explicit about connecting innovation to a higher purpose, right? Because when those new, sometimes risky approaches are clearly tied to a meaningful organizational goal, that provides the necessary pull. It overcomes the gravity of the comfort zone. The risk feels worthwhile because it serves the bigger mission.
Absolutely. That connection is vital for motivation. And critically, leaders must model creative risk-taking themselves. If the boss never tries something new and maybe stumbles publicly, why would anyone else feel safe doing it? When leaders step outside their own comfort zones, try new things, admit when they don't know, that builds the foundation of psychological safety needed for others to take productive risks.
Psychological safety. Yeah. It's not just about being nice. It's about creating a culture where people feel genuinely secure enough to propose half-baked ideas, to experiment, to try things that might actually fail. And a huge part of building that safety is consciously shifting the language, moving away from those 6 barrier phrases we talked about and towards, well, towards bridges.
Exactly. Actively replacing those negative closed phrases with open, expansive questions. Things like, what if we tried? How might we approach this differently? Okay, that's an obstacle. What would make it possible to overcome it? That fundamental linguistic shift changes the whole energy of the conversation. It moves from defensive closure to inventive exploration.
And crucially, this transformation requires celebrating experimentation, regardless of the immediate outcome. This is tough for some cultures. If the only things that get rewarded are guaranteed successes, people will naturally only take safe bets. They won't stretch.
Right. Recognizing and rewarding thoughtful risk-taking, even when the result isn't what was hoped for, sends a powerful signal. He says creativity and learning are valued even more than just immediate predictable success.
Okay, this is all incredibly insightful. So for you, the listener, sitting there thinking, right, I see this in my team. I want to shift away from this autopilot. Let's make this really practical. Here are 5 immediate steps you can take, starting like tomorrow, to implement this shift with your team.
Okay, let's turn these ideas into action. Step 1. Conduct a language audit. Simple, but powerful. For 1 week, just listen intently. In meetings, in emails, in hallway chats, note down every single time you hear or catch yourself using one of those 6 conventionality reinforcing phrases. You don't need to call anyone out initially. Just build awareness. That's the critical first step to breaking any unconscious habit.
That act of just listening, it really makes the invisible tax visible, doesn't it?
Okay, what's step 2? Moving from auditing to actually changing the behavior.
Step 2, implement the yes and rule. This is famously borrowed from improvisational comedy. The core idea is to separate idea generation from idea assessment. So when someone proposes an idea, especially early on, the required response isn't evaluation, it's building. It has to start with yes and, so yes, acknowledge the idea, and we could also try X, or yes, and that makes me think about Y. It forces you to build, not dismiss, maximizing the sheer volume of ideas initially. I love that. It forces connection instead of premature termination. Okay, what about breaking those ingrained routines, the procedural habits that keep us comfy?
That brings us to step 3. Institute regular pattern interruptions. You need to deliberately disrupt routines to jolt people out of automatic unconscious thinking. Simple things work. Hold a regular team meeting in a completely different location. Rotate who leads the daily stand-up. Use a completely novel format for your next brainstorming session. Just shaking up the physical environment or the procedural routine forces the brain to switch off autopilot and engage more consciously.
Makes sense. Disrupt the pattern, disrupt the thinking. Now, arguably the most critical behavioral shift, step 4. Create psychological safety. You have to actively protect the risk takers. What does that protection look like day to day?
It looks like this. When someone takes a thoughtful, measured risk, meaning, they did their homework, it wasn't reckless, but a calculated experiment, and it fails. You, as a leader or influential peer, must publicly champion the effort, the learning, the courage shown, not just focus on the disappointing outcome. You make it explicitly clear through recognition, maybe even small rewards, that thoughtful experimentation is valued, even when the immediate results fall short. That's how you build trust.
That sets such a powerful precedent. Okay, and finally, step 5.
Step 5. Connect innovation to purpose. Constantly. Never let the team forget why they're being asked to do these uncomfortable things, to challenge the status quo, to risk failure. Regularly reinforce how creative thinking, how questioning assumptions, how thoughtful risk-taking directly serves the organization's higher, meaningful purpose, whatever that mission is. That linkage provides the deep, sustained motivation needed to overcome the powerful gravitational pull of yesterday's comfort zone.
It really boils down to a fundamental choice, doesn't it, for individuals and for organizations. Are we operating primarily from fear-based comfort, sticking to the path of least resistance? Or are we choosing to operate from purpose-driven growth, embracing the uncertainty that comes with striving for something better?
Exactly. And remember, your default success strategies, those conventional approaches, the things that got you and your organization where you are today, they worked great, fantastic, until the pace of change accelerates beyond their effectiveness. what brought success in the past can very quickly become the anchor that leads to stagnation and ultimately organizational failure in the future.
So the words, "we've always done it this way," don't have to be a full stop, a period at the end of innovation. They can instead be an opening, an ellipsis, perhaps,
But
prompting the question, okay, but what if we didn't? What might be possible then? Okay. Listen for those 6 phrases this week, in your meetings, in your own thoughts, and challenge yourself, challenge your team to start turning those barriers into bridges.
until next time.
Stay curious.